Imagine you are standing in a room with two strings hanging from the ceiling. Now, they are far enough apart that you can hold onto one, but not both at the same time. And your only task is to tie them together. Now, you aren't alone in the room. Next to you is a table, and on that table is a pair of pliers, and all of this is fair game for you to use. Now, what most people do initially is that they grab hold of the one string, they try and reach across to see if they can get to the other one, and of course that fails. The next thing they try is they get onto the table. They think that maybe if they push that along a bit, get on top of it, then they can reach the top of the other string. Of course, that fails as well. And the final thing they try is they grab the pair of pliers, they use it as an extension of their hand, they try and reach as far as they can to the other string, but of course, they still fall short. And that is because this experiment has a very specific solution. The solution is that you have to stop seeing the pliers as pliers and think of it purely as a weight. When you do that, you realize you can tie the pliers to the bottom of the one string, swing it so it acts like a pendulum, walk over to the other string, wait for the pliers to come back to you, grab it, and then tie the two strings together. When participants were shown this answer, the most common response was disbelief. The answer was hiding in plain sight, and yet no one had really considered to use the pliers as a weight. They only saw it as a gripping tool. Norman Maier designed this experiment in 1931 to study a limit in human thinking. The psychologist who followed his work named it functional fixedness, the tendency to see an object only through the function it was first introduced to you for. Maier described two modes of thinking that this experiment revealed. The first he called reproductive thinking. So you take a solution that you've applied before and you try to apply that solution into a new environment. The second type of thinking he called productive thinking. In this kind of thinking, you restructure the problem from scratch. You reorganize the elements that are in front of you and you allow a solution to emerge. Almost everyone who fails the two-string test were thinking reproducibly in a situation that required them to think productively. So what does this have to do with AI adoption in your business? When organizations decide to adopt AI, they almost always approach it in the same way. They identify the tools that the team will use, they design trainings around those specific use cases, they measure the completion rates, and they just let people go, just use this tool. And if you've been paying attention to the two-string problem, then you can already see where this leads. When people are trained on specific use cases, those use cases become the mental frame for the tool. So they use the AI assistant to rewrite emails because that's what they were shown. They use the meeting summarizer because this is what the training covered. The tool acquires a designated function, and that function becomes the ceiling. The pliers only grip things. The more generative approach runs in the opposite direction. Rather than beginning with the tool and working towards adoption, you begin with the problem and you work towards discovery. You give people real challenges and ask them to find their own way to use AI in solving them. You create the conditions for experimentation, for false starts, for unexpected solutions. You treat adoption as a shift in how people think about problems, and the tool becomes the means rather than the definition. This is reproductive versus productive thinking playing out inside of your organization. One approach hands people the pliers and tells them what to do with them. The other builds an environment where people can discover for themselves the use of those pliers, only limited by their imagination. The functional fixedness research surfaces pretty vividly when adults are tested against children. 5-year-olds have been shown to outperform adults and MBA graduates on certain functional fixedness experiments. And it's not because they are more creative in general, it's because they haven't been shown exactly what certain objects are for. A box is just a box. A pair of pliers is just an interesting object. It opens the door to other interpretations of an object is still open. And every adult who struggles with the experiments do so in rough proportion to how thoroughly they've been trained in the conventional use of the object in front of them. Experience in this specific sense becomes a narrowing force. Now, if we carry that forward into AI adoption, the pattern becomes pretty visible. When you introduce an AI tool to an experienced team by telling them what it does and how to use it, you are participating in the same narrowing process. You are giving the tool a designated function. And once that function is established, it'll become very difficult for people to see past it. So, what does productive AI leadership look like? Well, the shift towards productive AI leadership begins with how you frame the challenge. And hopefully by now you've noticed that the difference in framing is more consequential than you might think. When a leader says, here's the tool and here's what you will use it for, the cognitive task that they are setting for their people is compliance. The question that they have to answer is, am I using this correctly? When a leader introduces the tool and then asks, what problems in your work could you solve using this? The cognitive task becomes discovery. The question being answered is, what is possible here? Those two questions produce fundamentally different relationships with the technology, and that difference compounds over time. So rather than prescribing use cases for your team, present real problems and ask them how they'll go about fixing it. Run short experiments. Ask people to share what surprised them about using AI. Every unexpected application is a signal that someone's thinking is shifting. And that shift, repeated across the team, that's what real adoption looks like.